Hey there, everybody. Pete Pardo here from Sea Tranquility. Welcome to another edition of Ranking the Albums here, Sunday morning brunch. We've got Rich Catino and Nick Franco on board, both from the Hudson Valley Squares. Rich, of course, from Brave Words and Bloody Knuckles and Metal Asylum. Good morning, guys. How are you?
Morning, guys.
Good. Ready to go.
That's all Nick has to say. I'm good. That's about it. Anyway, today we're going to take a look at and rank the albums of Blind Guardian, Power Metal Legends, 11 albums in total. Rich has got that cool Night at the Opera poster. When did you get that on the tour?
Yeah, when they came to America for the first time. I'm pretty sure that was the first time. And I still have, I pulled this out, the ad from when they did their signing at Vintage Vinyl, New Jersey.
Oh, wow.
I found that. And then the signed poster. And I actually have the ad, too. I didn't realize I dug this out. The ad that was in, I want to say, the Aquarian magazine. That's how we used to find out about shows coming around. So it's when they played the Birchill with Symphony X.
Yeah, I was at that show. It was a great show.
Yeah.
What year was that?
2002, right? I think, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And I think I got a couple pictures here from when they were there. Yeah, the Vintage Vinyl signing. Still got those. That was really cool. They were one of the first, European power metal bands to come over here and start touring.
Yeah, pretty regularly too.
Yeah. Them in 2002, that was what? Them, Gamma Ray started coming over a little bit, right? Halloween, I think, started coming back soon after that.
Yep.
03.
Yeah, when they did the Pumpkins United, not Pumpkins United, the one with Gamma Ray is Halloween and Gamma Ray together. What was that called? Oh, do you guys remember?
Yeah,
I missed
What was
that.
it? Oh, Hellish Rock. That's what it was called. And who else? Ed Guy came over. Hammerfall started coming over,
Yeah, because all of a sudden then Hammerfall was here like every couple of years. I mean, pretty regularly.
Yeah.
Then Primal Fear started coming over, and before you know it, now it's like Stradivarius and everybody.
Yeah, it was great.
Yep, that's right.
It was great. It was about time though, because they were all like, we'll see here. Blind Guardian was around since 1988.
Yeah. Well, the power metal thing was basically a European thing only for so long, and
Right.
You had no representation here in the States whatsoever. So it's good. It was good to see like a healthy influx of that fairly regularly. If you didn't have the same band every year or same bands every year, you had the other ones. Sonata Arctica started coming over all the time, and Yep. So we got 11 albums in total. So we're going to rank them from our least favorites to our favorites. So we're going to go Rich, Nick, myself, and we'll keep going around and around until we get to number one.
All right. So my 11 is A Twist in the Myth from 2006. So I enjoy this one. I think by this time this one's after Night at the Opera, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm correct. So it was 2002, right? So this is 2006. So this was like the next step after that album with a lot of the orchestration, a lot of the vocal layers. So this one, I think it just lost, by this time it was too much. And they lost their energy and the power that they had in those riffs that Blind Guardian was known for. And I just think it was a little too much and overdone, but there were still, simple songs that are not simple, but straightforward, like Fly or Turn the Page or Another Stranger Me too. Lionheart was like a little bit heavier, like their older stuff. But yeah, overall it just became too layered, I think, for me. Too many vocal harmonies, too much orchestration, and they lost some of that edge and power that they used to have. But still enjoyable songs. I think Blind Guardian has always been consistent with their sound and their style.
Very true. All right, Nick, what do you got for number 11?
So for my number 11, it's very, very easily the Twilight Orchestra, like I say, the Dark Lands, the thing they just came out with. That missed me completely, and I understand it was mostly Hansi trying to do that style of music, but I can't even get through it. So it's just not for me. It was, I think maybe they were trying to do what a band like German symphonic metal band Therion was doing, maybe. But that one is the easiest choice on this whole list for me, is that one.
Yeah, Legacy of the Dark Lands from 2019 is my number 11 as well. I don't dislike it. I mean, it's like a Hansi solo album with an orchestra, basically. I mean, there's no guitars on it. It's a lot of those really short, kind of classical symphonic interludes. There's some pretty powerful songs on there. Like Harvester of Souls, Point of No Return, A New Beginning, and the Red Dwarf's Tower is pretty cool. But I just feel it's really, really overblown. Like Chris Allen and I talked about the most recent Nightwish album, which is also really big and overblown as well. And I find that, hopefully this is not the kind of direction that he wants to continue going, because I miss like a real band album from these guys. And I don't get that with this album. I think it's really long. I appreciate the concept and trying to put together something this grandiose. I just don't think it really works as a Blind Guardian album to me. So that's my number 11.
That's my number 10. So all the same things you guys said. And as I'm looking at the track listing, there's 24 songs.
Yeah.
And out of all of them, a lot of them are under a minute, or they're like 27, 26 seconds long, or they're like a minute and something, like minute 22 or something like that. So you can cut half of that down into making it a full song, like a full piece of music. So yeah, it's a lot to digest and a lot of orchestrations. It's like the Nightwish, like you said, it's just too much. It was too much. And it's like a Hansi solo album too. So enjoyable though. Like if you're watching like a fantasy, Dungeons and Dragons type of a thing, type of a movie or something, you want to set that kind of an atmosphere. You want to go to that kind of place, like that journey. It's a great album for it. But when you stack it up against all the other Blind Guardian albums, it's too much into that realm, like I said before, with Night at the Opera.
Yeah, you take all the instrumental bits from that album, and you maybe Peter Jackson decides to do like a Silmarillion film, right? There's your soundtrack, right? It works pretty well that way. But for me, it's like if you take out all like the vocal pieces, even without the full band, even with just Hansi and the orchestra, you take all the full-fledged songs on this album, put them together on one album. That's probably a pretty good, really good hour-long album, right? As it stands, I mean, what is this whole thing, like about 2 hours long? It's pushing it if it isn't, at least. It's just
there's a whole slew of bands that do that so much better. So if I did want that soundtrack, and I have a whole playlist for when I write fiction, and it's just too frenetic, too Wagnerian for me. It's just not for me personally.
All right, Nick, you're number 10.
So I went back and forth with this, but I'm going to get Twist and the Myth out there as well from 2006. What Rich said, basically, that it's this songwriting shift had begun after Nightfall in Middle Earth, and it just became, that's when their drummer, Toman the Omen Stuch, whatever you say his name, that's when he left, and he didn't like that direction. Because they've had a very consistent lineup. Those Andre and Marcus and Hansi have been there, since probably the beginning, and have had the same type of vision, which is rare in a band. But this is where it began to splinter into too much orchestration, too many, like 48 parts when there only needed to be 5 parts. That was the problem. A lot of the elements were there that we loved, but overall, I'd have to put that in there as the number 10.
Gotcha. All right. My number 10 might not make some people happy, but it is what it is. I'm going to go with the debut Battalions of Fear from '88 as my number 10. I would say every album from here on in, I enjoy quite a bit. And it's just a matter of where to kind of put it. I think, their kind of core sound, not quite there yet. This is more of like a speed metal or thrash album. That big epic feel that you get with Blind Guardian is not quite there yet, but it's enjoyable for what it is, I think. The Martyr is killer. The title track is amazing. I love Majesty. Good album, fun album. Not quite the Blind Guardian we know and love, but still, it's kind of interesting to hear some of these bands in their kind of infancy, and it's still pretty solid, I think, for what it is. So that's my number 10.
Fair.
So where are we at? 9, right?
Yep.
All right, go with At the Edge of Time from 2010. So this is after A Twist in the Myth. So it's still along those lines with a lot of the orchestration, the vocal harmonies, layers like that. But I think they pulled it back a little bit as well. You had Sacred Worlds, Tannerlawn, Into the Void, Ride into Obsession, which is more old school. Valkyries, War of Thrones, A Voice in the Dark, and Wheel of Time is really good epic. It's almost 9 minutes long. So yeah, I do enjoy this album, definitely better than A Twist in the Myth. And this is right in between that and Beyond the Red Mirror, which was 2015. So yeah, it's better after A Twist in the Myth. Not still my favorite. You know, it's a little bit of the mix of that, their older style with A Twist in the Myth era. So that's why it's at my 9.
Cool. How about you, Nick?
Well, for my 9, I'm going with A Night at the Opera. And I think for me, yep, there it is. First of all, one of the worst covers ever conceived after years and years and years of perfection in the album cover department. Blind Guardian albums are some of the greatest covers you could get. Oh, you know, I have it. Here it is. I can do my own prop. I do my own stunts. But yeah, that was the first thing, yeah, that had me going like, oh boy. And I mean, there are good songs on it. I like Just Jerusalem. I really like Battlefield. I like Age of False Innocence. And the reason why this album isn't kind of dead last is because of the epic at the end, and then there was silence. That is one of the finest songs I think that they've made, and super, super epic, and showed you they still had what it took. But I didn't like the direction. How do you follow up Nightfall in Middle Earth? I don't know. They probably, you know, were challenged by that. And I think they went a little too much in the busy, too many tracks, too many vocal lines
Yes.
direction. So yeah, I'd have to say 2002's A Night at the Opera is my number 9.
And all those songs are 5 minutes or longer. Pretty long songs.
Yeah. So you're committed, you know, you're and I wanna love it, you know. Now they made a song called Harvest of not Harvest of Sorrow. Was it Harvest of Sorrow? It was on a single, a B-side from this album.
Yeah, Harvest of Sorrow.
Yeah, that was a ballad that they made, which, I mean, if you can associate it with this album loosely, because I think that's when it came out. I think I have to look that up. But anyway, that's a beautiful song, but it's not on the album proper. I have it on a single. And yeah, in fact, when the next turn, I'll get it. It's kind of cool. But yeah, I'd put that back there. That one was kind of a letdown.
Well, it's interesting how different our rankings are here.
Yeah.
So, yeah. My number 9 is Follow the Blind from '89. Again, really good album. More of a speed metal album. It's very strong though, you know, considering
More like Halloween, right?
Yeah,
Those
yeah, absolutely.
First two albums are very influenced by Walls of Jericho, I think.
Yep, no, absolutely. And it's really good for what it is. Title track is great. Fast to Madness, Valhalla, Frenzy track. I love you. You got Kai Hansen on that. You got Banished from Sanctuary. It's a strong album. Like I said, this is a band of like 3 or 4 different kind of eras almost, right? But more so on the stylist. Like you got this early era, which is more that kind of speed metal thrash type of thing, that are very, very early power metal, like you mentioned, Halloween. And then you got the heavier period where they're starting to incorporate the, you know, the really deep lyrics, you know, the Tolkien stuff and whatnot. And then they went a little more streamlined with their sound. Then they got back to doing more of the real epic, very busy and symphonic stuff. So they've kind of been like all over the place a little bit. But, you know, it depends on kind of, I guess, when you came in with this band. So I think that's going to kind of, I'm already seeing like the differences in our rankings based on that. Because I think I'm going to rank some of the albums you guys just mentioned a lot higher. And already, I'm guessing you're going to rank some of the earlier stuff a little higher than I did. So, but that's cool. That's what makes a show like this really, really great. So back to Rich for number 8.
So I don't have the album. Do you have Beyond the Red Mirror physical copy?
I do not. Wait, hold on.
I got it.
Nick, you have it? You got it?
Yep.
So this is the last one with the full band before Legacy of the Dark Lands from 2015. It's enjoyable too. It's very familiar, I think, too, At the Edge of Time from 2010, but it's still in that period with the twist and the myth, with the layered vocals and the orchestrations, things like that. You can definitely tell where the next album, Legacy of the Dark Lands, went, right? With the layers and the vocal harmonies and a lot of the guitar melodies too. They use a lot. And actually, as I'm looking at the track listing, this is on Wikipedia, I didn't realize it was divided up into chapters. Did you guys know that? When you look at the track listing, it says chapter 1 and 2, The Awakening and Disturbance, and Here and Now. And I didn't realize that.
It's listed,
so that's interesting. So you got
kind of small in the lyric book.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool.
It's a cool way to
approach. So what's on this? When I went back to it, what's that?
I said it's a cool way to approach putting an album together that way, but that's how they kind of saw their compositions and their storytelling.
Right. Right. They never really did that before. Like on Nightfall and Middle Earth, they didn't divide it up like that. It's just different songs.
These are different characters that the album revolves around. So yeah. Oh,
cool.
Really creative. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. And this is, again, they're mixing the layers of the vocal harmonies and the melodies with the riffs. But again, the riffs are back a little bit more heavier, I think, a little more old school. So I really like the opener, Ninth Wave. Twilight of the Gods is probably my favorite. What else? Holy Grail is very old school. Ashes of Eternity is cool. At the Edge of Time is really good. And what else we got on here? Grand Parade, Miracle Machine. It's a cool album. I enjoy it. Cool artwork as well.
Yep.
Yeah, it's getting back a little more to the old school, but still more modern Blind Guardian as well.
Cool. This is that single, by the way, for And Then There Was Silence.
Oh, yes, I have that. Yeah, that's where you got Harvest of Sorrow on there, right?
Yeah, I've had that since it came out. I mean, just really cool, typical artwork.
They do write really nice acoustic ballads.
Yeah.
Nice pieces of music.
Yeah, they really do. So my number 8, right, is also Beyond the Red Mirror. For I think it was a step. I think they were a little much. They weren't quite where they were with The Twist and the Myth. There's more straightforward stuff on here. Like there's a lot of parts to songs where you're like, yeah, you really get it. And then they go off into all the vocal harmonies and things like that. And I'm hoping that this Legacy of the Dark Lands thing gets that out of their system and they write us a banger for their next stuff. Their next one.
I think so.
But you're right. There's a lot of good stuff. This is a good album. I actually interviewed him before this album came out, Hansi. And cool. What a nice guy to interview, And he was somebody I looked up to for a really long time, so I was nervous. And he was very cool. Best songs, real quick, would be like you said, like Twilight of the Gods and Holy Grail. Grand Parade is great. The best part of that interview with Hansi Kusch was at the end of it. There was like 3 or 4 minutes, and we had finished up and everything. And for 3 or 4 minutes, we talked about Game of Thrones. And
oh, cool.
At the end of that phone call, because I was just starting to get into interviewing bands in 2015, and I remember getting off the phone and just being like ecstatic, like a child. Like I just talked to Hansi Kusch about Game of Thrones, and we were both like fans in that moment because he was like, "I know what they're gonna do next. It's so great. I love it." We were like talking like that, so that was kind of cool. So that's what I would always associate this with. Maybe it made it go a little higher.
And they have so many dragons in their artwork and stuff. How great are the dragons in Game of Thrones? They were incredible looking.
Yeah. Yep.
In 2015, that was before they really showed the dragons much on that show, if you remember correctly, right? They were really
it was pretty early on. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was cool.
All right, my number 8 is going to be Somewhere Far Beyond from 1992. This for me is the album that really started to see the sound that we really know as Blind Guardian really started to take shape. Solid record. Quest for Tanalorn is great. The title track is great. Yeah, great album cover on that too. Time, What Is Time? It's just very strong record. And that for me is, and when you think about it too, that's 1992. So you've got this real adventurous kind of epic, at times symphonic power metal style. These guys were way ahead of their time, I think. because they, you know, Halloween really wasn't doing stuff like this. Gamma Ray really wasn't doing stuff like this. This is obviously way before Nightwish. So I think, you know, Blind Guardian, a very, very important band in this kind of whole power metal history, you know, for doing this kind of epic style that they do. Fantasy tinged power metal, or whatever you want to call it.
Dungeons and Dragons, creativity, right? Fantasy storytelling.
Yep, and way before Rhapsody, right? So,
yeah.
All right, Rich, back to you, number 7.
7, going with Night at the Opera. So even though this started with all the layers of orchestration and vocal harmonies, lots of vocal harmonies, lots of guitar harmonies too, right? And melodies going on, like lots of layers.
Yeah.
Like I said, they're long songs. And then there were silence, it's 14 minutes. So even though it's a bit overblown for my taste too, I guess since they came here to tour for that album, like I said, I have the flyer from when they read vintage vinyl. You know, my first time seeing them live, it's definitely a special time for me for Blind Guardian. So that's why I still enjoy this album a lot, even though it's a bit, you know, too much for me as well. So I would pick Precious Jerusalem, Battlefield, Under the Ice is really cool. The Soul Forged, The Maiden and the Minstrel Night. And then I even like And Then There Were Silence, even though it's a bit, you know, it's a bit long, but still enjoyable. Great.
Yeah, Under the Ice is
my number 7.
And it's funny that my complaint about Blind Guardian is that they got too overblown, and yet And Then There Was Silence is my favorite song of that album.
I know, right? Oh wow! I just found.
I just say
my guest pass too. I went to the show.
Cool.
It was in the CD.
Nice.
That's awesome.
I think I saw that tour. That tour played New York City, played the World, right, or something. Played one of those clubs in New York City. I saw that tour. I think that's the first time. I think I went to that.
Could be.
Was that with Symphony X2 like they did in New Jersey, or that was just for the Jersey show?
You know what? I don't know. That's a long time ago.
Earl, that's a tiny little place. I remember Halloween played there at one point too. Like
something happened with me and Blind Guardian in terms of 2002, which I'll get into. That kind of takes my memory from whatever I did stateside. Is it my turn? It is.
Yes.
Right? Great. Number 7. Somewhere Far Beyond. And you hit it right on the head, Pete. That's one of the coolest. As one of these Dungeons and Dragons loving fantasy total nerd to 1,000 people that I am, I just love that. You know, that could be the cover of the book. You know, you get the warrior.
It's definitely a book cover.
Yeah, that's so cool. And so Somewhere Far Beyond I originally thought would rank higher, but when I really sat down with all the albums, I was like, well, okay, it's, you know, sort of mid-pack, but you know, you gotta mention the Bard Song in the Forest, the ballad of this type of music. And Hansi's like somewhat, you know, English is a second language lyric choice. Didn't matter. It was part of the charm. Really incredible. One of the best, like, I mean, I can't even think of another like fantasy type minstrel strolling ballad that gets the point across like the Bard Song. And when you see them play it live, it's another level. And I got to see this performance at Wacken in 2002, which they made a DVD of, and I have it, and I'm on it. Well, you know, from the aerial shot, I'm somebody in the crowd. I was right up against the barrier. It was my first overseas type festival, Wacken 2002, and they were one of the main attractions, Blind Guardian. The entire crowd, I'd never been in a crowd that big. You know, at that point, I turned around and saw the sea of people behind me because they're like heroes over there. It's Germany, you know. And the entire crowd sang the Bard Song before they even came out on stage to play anything. And that was one of the most like hair standing up, like just beautiful moments ever. The whole crowd sang it. It was so cool. But Somewhere Far Beyond's other high points are Time, What Is Time, Journey Through the Dark, and the Bard Song in the Forest. Not really anything weak on here at all. Just stuff that didn't quite grab me as much as some of the other albums, but still a very fine quality piece of Blind Guardian's discography.
Yes, indeed. All right. My number 7 is Tales from the Twilight World from 1990, third album. I think here, moving away from the speed metal to this is like a true power metal album, I think, for them. Yep, there you go. Another cool album cover.
Yeah.
Last Candle is great. Traveler in Time, Tommy Knockers is quite good. Lost in the Twilight Hall, really, really solid album. Again, you know, you're looking at some of those early power metal classics. I think this is obviously one of them. That's my number 7.
Definitely. Good one.
All right. This is what number you got? 5?
6?
Yeah, 6. No, I'm sorry, 6. Yeah. Going with Battalions of Fear. That's the first one. You got a classic on this that they still play live, Majesty. 2 instrumentals, which are okay. Run for the Night's great. I really like Battalions of Fear 2 and Guardian of the Blind. Both this one. Not the greatest artwork either, but it's the beginning. What are you going to do, you know?
Yeah, not terrible.
No, it's okay. But it's very influenced by Halloween Walls of Jericho and their EP. You know, they're just getting their start. They're totally influenced by their country mates there. But it's cool. I still enjoy it. It's one of the first Blind Guardian albums I got, so I have definitely good memories with it, getting into this kind of music. Cool. So that's why I chose it by my 6.
Nice. My number 6 is Follow the Blind, which I need a copy of because I don't know what happened to mine.
Have it here.
Yeah, there we go. Follow the Blind came out in 1989. There you go. The Dungeons and Dragons book cover, just can't beat it.
Right? And then you got them actually looking through the hole here in the castle, I guess. And then when you look at the back of it, you got the guys on the other side.
Yeah. They absolutely capture that fantasy element so well. And you know, the production values weren't quite there yet. It was more a speed metal affair, more married to that old Halloween sound, which I love and we all love here. And I would say probably the title track, Fast to Madness, I love. And of course the immortal song Valhalla, which you ever hear that version on, you have Tokyo Tales, the live album?
Oh, good. What a great live album. That's
sneaky one of the best live albums out there, man, just from crowd participation alone. Those people are in Japan, man. They're humming the guitar refrains and stuff. Man, when everybody starts singing Valhalla together, forget it. And you know, in the live show, they'll slow it down and just have the drums going, and the whole crowd just keeps repeating the chorus, and then they come back. Oh man, look at this grin.
Did you guys see them when they last played New York here? They played with Gravedigger twice.
Yes.
They did 2 tours of Gravedigger. Man, the floor in those places, you could feel it moving when people were getting into that, you know, the anthem like Valhalla or a couple of the Gravedigger songs. People were just loving that stuff.
Yeah. Very cool. Yeah, amazing that performance. So Follow the Blind, number 6.
My number 6 is Night at the Opera from 2002. You know, I mean, I came into this band with the Nightfall and Middle Earth album, so I probably have better love for some of these albums than folks who, you know, follow these guys from the very, very beginning. I like this album quite a bit. It's really proggy. It's really symphonic. I don't mind that because I like that style of music anyway. Some great songs on here. Battlefield, Under the Ice. Sadly Sings Destiny, and then there was Silence is awesome, big and, you know, epic sounding. Also The Maiden and the Minstrel Night, excellent. Precious Jerusalem is really good. I don't know. It's a cool concept album for this style of music. I also find it hard to kind of, even though I named a bunch of songs, it's hard to pick stuff off of this album. Like, to me, this album is best listened to in its entirety, start to finish. And I find a lot of these concept albums, whether it be metal or prog or whatever, where they're really trying to get that storyline through, you get this little kind of like continuation on from track to track. So this is an album when I'm in the mood to hear it. I'm going to play it start to finish. I'm not interested in hearing 1 or 2 tracks from it. I just want to hear the whole thing. And I don't hate the cover that much. I think the artwork's okay.
I think it's cool.
It's kind of silly, I guess, compared to everything else, but it's not bad. But I could totally see compared to some of the, some of these are just like absolutely amazing. So I get it, but I think it kind of fits the nature of the album and the storyline they're telling. So I don't mind. So that's my number 6.
All right, top 5. This might be a little sacrilegious to people, but I'm going to go with Nightfall of Middle Earth. Even though I like it, it was really good when it first came out. I remember getting it. It's again the beginning of that period where there's a lot of guitar melodies and harmonies and a lot of vocal melodies and harmonies. And you got the interludes as well going in between the songs, because there's 22 songs on here with all the interludes too. So it's the beginning of those longer albums, with longer songs, but still a couple classics on here that I love, that I would always put in a power metal playlist, like Into the Storm, love it. Nightfall is probably my favorite Blind Guardian ballad, I would say. Mirror Mirror was the single, huge for them. They still play that live all the time. Time Stands Still at the Iron Hill. What else is on here? Thorn, When Sorrow Sang, A Dark Passage. So there's a lot of good, heavier, older Blind Guardian moments, but it's still getting into all the, the layered vocals, the harmonies, and the melody. So it's in my 5 because it's great. It's essential power metal. Don't get me wrong, but it's the start, I think, of getting into too much of that, which you would hear in later albums. It takes away from some of their simplicity and directness from the earlier albums. So that's why it lands at my number 5 and it's not higher. But I know a lot of people are going to probably put it at their 3, 2, or 1, which makes sense, depending on what your taste is for Blind Guardian. So that's why it's at my 5.
Cool.
So my number 5, I was actually kind of surprised that I was surprised at myself. I'm putting At the Edge of Time from 2010 solidly in the number 5 position, as somebody who kind of lamented the direction they went after Nightfall and was kind of disappointed through that decade. I think they ended the decade on a we're back kind of note. I think At the Edge of Time is a much more direct and kick-ass, heavy double bass, with their flair for the proggy. But you get songs like Valkyries, the return to the Tantalorn vibe with the song Tantalorn, and Wheel of Time, which is about the great Robert Jordan fantasy series. It's called The Wheel of Time, like this huge epic, modern day Lord of the Rings style story that they were influenced by. I love that they're always influenced by something in the fantasy realm, and that they maintain that throughout their history. So I would say that At the Edge of Time was a great return to form. I think they should explore that direction more. I'm hoping they do, because that was kick ass. I was surprised to find it at number 5, but now that I really think about it, I'm not surprised. So there it is, At the Edge of Time, number 5.
More about that in a couple minutes. My number 5 is Beyond the Red Mirror from 2015, which is the
our lists are really all over the place, right?
They're totally anywhere. Yeah, I mean that's pretty cool, actually.
Cool. Yeah.
So this is another one of those concept albums. This is the sequel to Imagination from the Other Side, which is pretty cool. A lot of great songs on there. This again is another one of those, for me, got to play it from start to finish albums. But the Ninth Wave is excellent. At the Edge of Time is great. The Throne is a great track. It's just it's another cool concept piece from the band. It's pretty adventurous. I like this side of the band. So again, I think that's what's cool about having us all 3 talk about this catalog, is that me being the big prog guy, I don't mind these more overblown albums too much. With the exception of the most recent one, which I think takes it to places they didn't really need to go. But I think like all of these, like late 90s into the 2000s albums, are pretty damn terrific, and I like them for the adventurous nature of the way they put them together. So that's my number 5, Beyond the Red Mirror.
All right, number 4, going with the second album, Follow the Blind. I like the heaviness and the Halloweenish influences on this, but it still has the start of those melodies and things that they'd be known for going forward, especially on the next 2 albums. So, and I actually remember getting Imaginations. That was my first album that I got from them. That's how I got into them. And that was what, 95, I think, right?
95.
Yeah. And then it went backwards. So these the second, third, and fourth albums have a special place for me for being a Blind Guardian fan. So this album has Banished to Sanctuary, Damned for All Time. I really like Follow the Blind. I mean, Follow the Blind and Hall of the King. And what else? Valhalla's on here too, and Don't Break the Circle. I think there's a lot of great songs on this that are still heavy, still speed metal, getting into the power metal, and more melody with it. You know, more refined as opposed to Battalions of Fear, the debut. So yeah, I go back to this a lot. I really like this one.
Cool. If I remember correctly, when we did that kind of intro to power metal show way back, Rich, I think that was one of your picks, right? If I remember correctly.
It was either that or Somewhere Far Beyond.
Yeah, it was one of the two of them, if I remember correctly. Yeah.
I love that. That's another essential power metal album.
Yeah, there you go. Cool. All right, Nick, back to you. Number 4.
Number 4, I'm gonna go with Tales from the Twilight World from 1990. Yeah, this is it's fine. I got into them with Nightfall, but I went backwards, you know, right away in the discography. So this came out, you know, this was probably, like we said, this is where they were turning into their more proggy styles. You know, you had Lord of the Rings, the ballad, but of course that opening Traveler in Time, Welcome to Dying, and then Goodbye My Friend. Very good. But I'd say highlights of the faster songs, Lost in the Twilight Hall. You get a Kai Hansen little visit from Kai on the vocal, you know, apex of the song, and then the wonderful The Last Candle, which
yeah,
the last, you know, that style of where you have the gang vocal come in and like make it all epic and during a fast moment. You know, there's hope for everyone. You know, oh my God, like that's just so cool. Like, let's just roll the dice and play Dungeons and Dragons for the rest of the day. You know, like just, oh my God, so good. So I think they were just starting to get into that, doing that. But yeah, so great album, phenomenal album cover. Still the, you know, the classic lineup was still there. So I go with 1990s Tales from the Twilight World, number 4.
Didn't they do The Last Candle on one of the more recent tours too? I want to say they brought it back.
Yeah. I was probably so happy that I passed out.
Yeah, I remember hearing that in recent years.
Yeah, they're great live. That's one thing about them. They are awesome live.
My number 4, At the Edge of Time from 2010. This is a pretty superb power metal album. Really memorable songs. A lot of fun to listen to. Sacred Worlds, Tanalorn, man, Wheel of Time, Valkyrie, just one after another. Pretty heavy album too, I think, but it's got like all those other elements you really like. I mean, there's the big symphonic swells, and I love the vocal harmonies. I mean, I can appreciate that Hansi is a big Queen fan, and he's trying to, you know, do something similar, and I dig that. I think that's what makes this band so unique, is those multi-track vocal harmonies. So, and they're all over the place on this album. And I agree with you, Nick. I think this was a great return to form. Even though I like the ones that came before this quite a bit too. So to me, it was not really much of a return, but I think a lot of people really saw this as a kind of getting back to business of like the 90s style of stuff. So yeah, quite good. Dig it a lot. At the Edge of Time.
Excellent.
All right, top 3.
Yep.
3's Imaginations for me. The first album that I got from them, which I still love to this day. But like I said before, when I got this and I went backwards, it was weird. The 2 albums previous to this, I've actually grown to like more over the years than this one, as much as I like this album. But it's definitely deserves to be in the top 3 for me. So the title track is so great. I'm Alive is so heavy. It's got a great drive to it. Mordred's song Born in the Morning Hall, how great is that riff? You know, and the way it attacks, so good. Another Holy War, and one of my favorite songs by them is And the Story Ends.
That's amazing.
The closing song, one of my favorites by them. I love the artwork too. It's so great. You know, the window frame, picture frame in the back, and then the dragon on the sword, right? Which actually came out as a necklace pendant at some point.
I have it on the back of this Sure.
Yeah, it's on the back of the shirt. Yep, I used to have that shirt. So yeah, this album has definitely a special place for me in my my love for power metal. But for some reason, over the years, the two before kind of nudged it out a little bit, and I'll explain the reason why when we get to that. But for anyone who's looking for essential power metal, albums, Imaginations and Nightfall, Middle Earth can't go wrong.
That is true. So my number 3 is Battalions of Fear. When I really look back at this, I realized how much I love this album. I didn't realize I loved it to this degree, but going back and thinking about it, Majesty is just incredible. Run for the Night is incredible. The title track, and I love By the Gates of Moria, which is something I think they should play all the time because it's really, really good. So really mature songwriting for how, it was in 1988 and they were still pretty young, but Battalions really gets it done for being so early in their in their band life. And it's grown over. It doesn't sound aged to me. It's just like I can listen to Walls of Jericho or any of those old Gamma Ray, whatever, and I just think those guys were really onto something. And the fullness of it was probably, we didn't realize at the time, but it was very high level music, and it stands the test of time. So I put Battalions right there, number 3.
Cool. All right, so this is probably going to surprise a lot of people, probably you guys, I'm assuming. But my number 3 is A Twist in the Myth from 2006. And the funny thing is, I normally don't really care much for power metal albums like this. So this album, to me, I think in their whole catalog, this is their big happy album. It's really catchy. It's very accessible. And that's one of the reasons why I don't really like Hammerfall that much. It's one of the reasons why I don't like Sonata or Freedom Call that much. I'm not really a big kind of like the big happy power metal type of guy. I like darker stuff. Yeah. But this album really grabbed me when it came out. And again, this is not that long after I first started listening to them. So again, it's kind of like when you came into a catalog, right? But I think there's some killer vocal melodies on here. This Will Never End is a great song. Otherland, Turn the Page is big and bright and just hook laden. I love Fly. Fly, I think, is one of their, this to me, Straight Through the Mirror is another great song. I think if I was to recommend a Blind Guardian album to someone that maybe doesn't it's not necessarily a huge power metal fan per se, but just loves more like kind of catchy hard rock and metal, this might be the album that I kind of direct them towards, because I think there's an accessible nature to this album. I think that won't scare people away. The songs aren't really long. It doesn't have all that proggy stuff going on. It's more direct. And I kind of like it for that. And I think, and again, I probably shouldn't like this album as much as I do, but it just really connected me when it first came out. And I love the artwork too. It's one of my favorite album covers by them. So yeah, so it's high up for me. But and I knew when I saw you guys throw it out there at the bottom, I was like, oh, okay.
That's the Fly single.
Yeah, that's great too. Yeah, look at that.
One of the coolest covers on the
That's amazing.
They still play that live too, Fly.
Yeah, Fly's a great song. Great song. So there you have it. Now the top 2. Here we go. Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah. Number 2, Tales from the Twilight World. So this one has those moments from the first 2, the speed metal purity, I would say, from those 2 albums, but much more fine-tuned, better production. And this is where the hooks start coming in too for all these songs. So they're still heavy, melodic, but the hooks are big for this and the next album. So that's why it's at my number 2. So like Traveler in Time, just that opening with the big vocals, right? And then the guitars start coming in, the drums, and then they all come in together and they kick you. That's great power metal right there. That's why I love this album. Welcome to Dying, which they still play a lot. Lord of the Rings is a nice melodic type of a sing-along song. Goodbye, My Friend. Love Lost in the Twilight Hall. Always on my playlist. They still play that live too. Tommy Knockers and The Last Candle too. This is a pretty flawless album, I think. There's one instrumental, and you got Altair 4, which I have to go back to that. It's a short song. It's like 2 minutes and 27 seconds. That's one I have to go back to. I don't remember that one that much, but everything else, you've got 9 songs, so 8 of them, front to back, I'll play through the whole thing. Another essential power metal album, I would say.
Cool. Yeah, so my top 2, these albums, now we're entering the realm of perfection in my mind. Everything else they've done, even if I didn't dig it, they don't do anything bad. They're an incredibly talented and incredibly inspired group of men. But these 2 albums, and my number 2 is Imaginations from the Other Side. And I got to see they played this in its entirety recently, and I don't know what to say. Very few bands, a lot of bands swing for this style of epic, songwriting, and few bands reach it to this pinnacle. Imaginations from the Other Side is. I didn't even write songs down because honestly, there's something incredible in each one, and there's not a bad moment, a wasted moment on this album. And I think they let themselves get proggy a little bit. That's when obviously they really started to expand into what they were, had their eye on becoming. But it was still so heavy. Imaginations from the Other Side, the way it starts is just peerless. And I love A Past and Future Secret. That is one of the finest little, again, ballads. I wouldn't even call it a regular.
Yeah.
It's not a ballad the way Unforgiven is a ballad, or so. It's more like
it's kind of like the Bard song.
Yeah, but it's like they went back in time and wrote something from the 15th century. You know what I mean? Like they just have that way. So Past and Future Secret is just incredible. And then the way Script for My Requiem comes in, Mordred's song, the way that comes in, oh man, the arrangements, like they were right on it. So I can't love this album enough. Imaginations from the Other Side, number 2. Unbelievable. But there's something better.
Yeah, that's my number 2 as well, and it could have been my number 1. It's quite good. What I like, it's a dark, heavy album, which I like. Title track is amazing. I'm Alive is a killer song. It's kind of that's like kind of a little bit of their speed metal beginnings, but it's still kind of proggy at the same time. Script for My Requiem is so good. Mordred's song, which you guys both mentioned, amazing, majestic track. And I love And the Story Ends. It's just big and grandiose. I mean, it doesn't get much better to close out an album than that. And I think the vocal harmonies on this album are off the charts good. And, maybe this is the album where, they always had good vocal harmonies, but I think this is the album where that really clicked with them. And they continued all the albums after that. They used that to the fullest. So it's just, if it wasn't for my number 1, this would easily be number 1 for me. It's really, really good.
And Born in a Morning Hall could be a soundtrack for today's world. If you get into the lyrics, very dark, like you said. Great. Yeah. Good.
Yep.
All right. Number 1, Somewhere Far Beyond. And it's weird. You'd think I would pick the one you just mentioned. I can't think now. What Imaginations. You'd think I'd pick that because that was the album that I got into them. But like I said, I went back and I really got an appreciation for this one and Tales from the Twilight World. Because I think, like I said, it has the moments from Halloween, the start of that speed metal / power metal. But then I think the hooks are so catchy on this, and you still got the big harmonies too. So the hooks are great. I love Time, What Is Time, Journey Through the Dark, Theater of Pain, Quest for Tantalon, Ashes to Ashes is nice and heavy. You got the Bard song, which is a classic, and Somewhere Far Beyond closes the album. Yeah, I think, and what's cool too on this, you got to get the bonus tracks. They do Spread Your Wings from Queen, which is a cool cover song, which is also very catchy and melodic. My favorite, still my favorite. It's tough between my top 3. I shuffle them from time to time, but I think I just always keep going back to this just because of Time, What Is Time, Journey Through the Dark, Quest for Tantalon, the title track. It's a great, like I said, great balance between power and melody and great hooks without it being too layered. And I think that's what I like more about Blind Guardian than Too Much Layers for me.
Nice. Number one time, as if there was any doubt, Nightfall, Middle Earth. Not only my favorite Blind Guardian album, but one of my favorite power metal albums, and therefore one of my favorite albums ever conceived. I am an unabashed J.R.R. Tolkien nut. I have a number of tattoos. That's from the Silmarillion, that helmet. So I've read Tolkien since I was a kid. So a concept album about Tolkien is a hell of a way to get into a band. And when you have it be arguably their finest hour, it's even better. And Blind Guardian was the last band that I had to really hunt for and search for and spend time going, I don't know how to get these albums. Like they were unavailable for
yeah.
I remember them being unavailable, for whatever reason. And, back then there was no, Spotify to come in or YouTube or anything. So there was that built the Blind Guardian, what do you call it? Zeitgeist, or it built it in my mind, like the anticipation. And
yeah, you had to. I'm sorry, Nick. I just want to say that you had to go to like those smaller music shops to get them because they really didn't have that. Like, what was it, CD World at the time? Maybe that's one of the places, and a couple places like that, Sam Goody. They didn't sell Blind Guardian and Gamma Ray and Stradivarius, and
it's until they got that deal with Century Media. I mean, you couldn't find these anywhere.
Right. Yeah, it was tough. Like I had to go to Vintage Vinyl to find these bands to get them.
Yeah, I don't think my friends and I had discovered that yet. My world was a lot smaller then. And I think I finally, Century Media put it out. That's probably how I finally got it. But so that added to it, and it did not let me down whatsoever. I mean, Into the Storm, Nightfall, Mirror. I mean, come on, Blood Tears. Time Stands Still at the Iron Hill, and When Sorrow Sang. I'm sorry, but that clutch of songs is some of the best epic power metal ever committed to tape. They were just in a zone. They ran up against some resistance from the Tolkien Foundation and what words they were allowed to use. And that's why I've read interviews where they've said that some of the lyrical content is vaguer than they wanted to be, because there was a number of names that they did not get permission to say.
Yeah.
But they, which is ridiculous. I mean, come on, like Christopher Tolkien, like Jesus, just because you don't think heavy metal is whatever. I don't know. You want a band of people want to pay tribute to your dad. Like, why don't you let them, without giving them any problems? But whatever.
You're going to listen to this album and you're going to want to go read the books if you haven't already. I mean, right? Watch the films. I mean,
speaking of, speaking of books and the films, how does this, because I forgot, how does this connect to the Lord of the Rings trilogy?
It's about a prior time in history. The battle, the Morgoth trying to take the Silmaril jewels from the elf Feanor. So it's in the Silmarillion, which sadly I can just reach and grab because I have a Tolkien.
It's based on the first age of Middle Earth, War of the Jewels, right?
Yeah, the War of the Jewels, the starlight that was trapped in the jewels was very, very influential. And so I think this new Amazon Prime series of Lord of the Rings is supposed to explore, if not that particular happening, but something around that time. Hopefully Blind Guardian will be asked to do some soundtrack to
is
it.
Peter Jackson involved in that at all or not?
No, not at all. Yeah,
because it was long rumored that he was going to do something relating to the Silmarillion, but I mean, I think that kind of ship has already sailed. So it's
I think The Hobbit wound up being too overblown for a lot of people. So I don't know if he's going to do that, but anything is possible. But Nightfall and Middle Earth, man, this is one of my favorite albums of my life. So it's definitely the note I would like to end on with Blind Guardian.
Yeah, same here. It's my number one as well. It's this is where I came in, and it's still my favorite to this day. Big, huge arrangements. Drumming is off the charts on here. A lot of just great riffs and great guitar solos. I can appreciate it from a lyrical standpoint, even though I'm not much of a lyric guy usually, but because I love the Tolkien universe as well. I think Hansi sounds great on this album. And so many great, the Curse of Feanor, Thorn, Dark Passage, Into the Storm, Nightfall. I mean, I don't even mind the little interludes on this. I think they work quite well because they're usually pretty short. But yeah, I mean, this is, again, another one of those albums that you got to listen to all the way through, right?
Yeah.
Love it.
So good stuff. Just I mean, most people consider one of their classics, I guess, depending on when you came through. But I mean, they have a lot of classic albums, I think, as we've kind of all made cases for a bunch of them today, right? So yeah, just a really cool band, and it'll be interesting to see where they go next. I think we're all kind of like wait and see, because that last one,
maybe he got that stuff out of his system. Maybe he did it that way so that they could buckle down and write a real double bass banger for the next one.
Yeah.
With the prog stuff, they got to, still mix it in, of course. Hopefully.
So we'll see. There you have it, everybody. 11 albums. Rank them as you like them in the comments below. I know we got a lot of Blind Guardian fans who watch the channel, so it'll be interesting to see how everybody puts together their list below. And I want to thank both Nick and Rich for doing the homework on this one. As always, greatly appreciated, guys. Anybody want to plug anything before we go?
Just, check me out at Metal Asylum, our website and our Facebook page, and I contribute writing to Brave Words magazine too.
That is correct. And both of these gentlemen are featured on the Hudson Valley Squares, and Rich is also a member of the Monsters Den. So look for them both coming up on episodes in the near future, and visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, of course, we're here on YouTube all the damn time. So for Nick Franco and Rich Catino, I am Pete Pardo. Have a good one, everybody.